The afternoon heat hit Kenny like a wave as he stepped out of the 7-Eleven, snacks and a cold drink in hand. The sun was relentless, the kind of Vegas heat that made the asphalt shimmer like a mirage. He leaned against the railing outside, watching as the street bustled with activity. A double-decker public transport bus rumbled to a stop nearby, its engine groaning under the weight of the passengers. Kenny took a sip of his drink, eyes scanning the faces stepping off until he spotted his crew. Jordan hopped down first, a grin plastered on his face, followed by Dre, Kay, and finally Marcus, who was nursing the same black eye from earlier. "Look who decided to show up," Kenny called out, tossing a bag of chips to Jordan. "Had to let the bus take its sweet time," Jordan replied, catching the bag mid-air. "Don't worry, though. The day's about to get interesting." Marcus grunted a greeting, already making a beeline for the Albertsons next door. "I'm grabbing water. We're not dying in this heat." "Good call," Kay muttered, adjusting the straps of his backpack. After Marcus returned with 2 gallons of water, the group started toward the parking lot. That's when Jordan pulled a set of keys from his pocket, flashing a sly smile. "You're joking," Dre said, as they turned the corner to see a gleaming, cherry-red convertible parked in the shade. "Nope. She's all mine, at least for now," Jordan said, running a hand over the hood. Kenny raised an eyebrow. "Where'd you even get this?" "Don't worry about it," Jordan shot back. "And no, this isn't the surprise. Just a little bonus for the day." As they piled into the car, Marcus slid into the passenger seat, the gallons of water wedged at his feet. Kenny, Kay, and Dre crammed into the back, their knees pressed together as they settled in. The ride was smooth, the drop top letting the wind whip through their hair as they cruised down Boulder Highway. It wasn't long before Kenny spotted something glinting under Jordan's seat. "Is that a gun?" he asked, his voice low. Jordan glanced over his shoulder, keeping one hand on the wheel. "Relax. It's just for show. Gotta keep people in line when I'm handling business." "Business like what?" Kay asked, narrowing his eyes. "Nothing you need to worry about," Jordan replied, shutting the conversation down. The rest of the drive was quiet, the hum of the engine and the crackle of the radio filling the silence. Finally, they left the main roads behind, heading toward the desert. Jordan pulled off onto a dirt path, the car bouncing as they drove deeper into the barren landscape. The sun was starting to dip lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the sand. When they reached their destination, the group stepped out to find an old, weathered shack sitting crookedly in the middle of nowhere. "Seriously?" Dre asked, kicking a rock out of his path. "This is your big surprise?" "Not quite," Jordan said, pushing the creaky door open. Inside, the place looked like it hadn't been touched in decades. Dust covered every surface, and the remnants of a bar sat in a corner, complete with broken stools and empty shelves. An ancient jukebox leaned against the wall, its once bright colors faded to a dull gray. Jordan leaned against the bar, smirking. "Found this place a while back. Pretty sure it was a hangout spot for some old gang or something." Kay ran a finger along the edge of the bar, inspecting the thick layer of dust. "Charming. Check it out," Jordan said, pulling a dusty bottle of liquor from the shelf behind him. He held it up, the glass catching the fading light. "Who's thirsty?" Kenny shook his head, crossing his arms. "We came all the way out here for some old shack." Jordan's smirk widened. "I told you, this isn't the surprise. Trust me, you're gonna love what's next." The group exchanged uncertain glances, but they knew Jordan well enough to stick around. Whatever he had planned, it was sure to make the day unforgettable. Whether that was a good thing or not, Kenny couldn't quite tell yet. The old shack was falling apart, its wooden walls warped from years of sun and wind, but it had its charm. Dust hung in the air, swirling in the streaks of golden sunlight that slipped through the cracks in the walls. The boys spread out, exploring their surroundings while Jordan leaned against the broken-down bar, a sly grin tugging at his lips. Kenny couldn't shake the unease he felt. The shack was cool in a hidden hangout kind of way, but there was something in Jordan's demeanor that felt off. The guy was always confident, but this was different, more calculated, like he had been planning something for a while. "All right," Jordan said, pushing off the bar and walking to a hidden corner of the shack. "Time for the surprise." Everyone turned to look as he pulled out a duffel bag covered in a thick layer of dust. He slung it onto the bar with a thud, unzipping it slowly. Kenny leaned forward, his curiosity tinged with dread. The room went silent as Jordan flipped the bag open to reveal stacks of cash. Kenny's heart sank. "What the hell, Jordan?" "Relax, man," Jordan said, his grin widening as he picked up a bundle of bills and tossed it in the air like a basketball. "It's just money." "Where did you get this?" Marcus asked, his voice low and serious. Jordan shrugged. "Been running some jobs for a crew downtown. Nothing major. A little pickup here, a little delivery there. They trust me, so they let me hold on to a cut." "You're working for the mafia?" Kay asked, his voice cracking slightly. "It's not like that," Jordan replied, rolling his eyes. "They're just small-time stuff, all right. I'm not out here breaking kneecaps or whatever. Just making connections." "That's insane," Kenny said, shaking his head. "You know what kind of trouble this could bring?" Jordan's smile faded, replaced by a harder edge. "You think I don't know what I'm doing? Look, I'm not dumb. I'm not getting in too deep. This is just money, man. And speaking of..." He reached into the bag, pulling out 5 stacks of bills. 10 grand. For each of you. No strings. The room was silent as Jordan placed the stacks on the bar, one for each of them. Dre was the first to react, whistling low as he picked up his share. "Damn, J-Dog," Dre said, flipping through the bills. "You really out here playing the game?" Marcus hesitated, his jaw tightening, but he eventually grabbed his stack. "This doesn't mean I'm cool with it," he muttered. Kay shook his head, backing away. "I don't want any part of this, man." Jordan smirked, tossing Kay's stack back into the bag. "Suit yourself, but don't come crying to me when you're broke." Kenny stood frozen, staring at the money. It was tempting, too tempting, but the thought of where it came from made his stomach turn. "I can't take this," he said finally. "I'm not getting dragged into your mess." Jordan's grin faltered for a moment before he shrugged. "Fine. More for me." The divide was subtle but palpable. Marcus pocketed his cash without another word, while Dre joked about blowing it all on sneakers. Kay stayed quiet, leaning against the wall with his arms crossed, while Kenny couldn't stop staring at Jordan, wondering how his best friend could be so reckless. Jordan zipped up the bag, throwing it over his shoulder. "All right, you guys ready to hit the strip tomorrow night for Kay's birthday, or what?" No one answered right away. The atmosphere had shifted, the easy camaraderie replaced by something heavier. For the first time, Kenny felt like they weren't all on the same page, and maybe they never would be again. As the sun began to set, the group packed up and headed out, but the unspoken tension lingered. Kenny couldn't help but glance back at the shack, the image of that duffel bag burned into his mind. This summer was supposed to be their last taste of freedom, but for the first time, Kenny wondered if they were all running straight into a trap, and if they'd make it out in one piece.